解けるわけねえだろ。
Welcome back, guys. AnimeScale here, and today we are going to be looking at those that I consider the top 20 strongest jutsu Naruto ever used during the series. There are just a couple of caveats when watching this list. This list is about just jutsu, so any of Naruto's different forms like Sage Mode or Baryon Mode won't be making it here. Obviously, jutsu performed with other characters are not included in the list. Also, while raw power is definitely a big factor, we're also going to be taking into account just how useful these techniques were to Naruto during his fights. So now, without any further ado, let's get started. We are going to be seeing a lot of different Rasengan types in this list, mostly because Naruto came up with a lot of ways of using the thing during the Fourth Great Ninja War. Coming in at number 20, the Rasenshuriken is pretty much just Naruto using one of his Chakra arms to form a Rasengan and using another one to slam people into it. It's not exactly the most innovative ability, but it definitely does pack more of a punch than a regular Rasengan would. Naruto only used this a couple of times in a war, so it just barely makes it into this list. Number 19, Rasengan Barrage. This is basically Naruto forming Rasengans on all of his Chakra arms and then thrusting them at people. Think of it as the base power of the Rasengan multiplied and coupled with the speed of KCM1 Naruto. It's nothing too crazy, but it does deserve one of the lower spots here. This jutsu gets points for just how ridiculously cool it looks more than anything else. I mean, it's a big Rasengan with tiny Rasengans floating around it. That has to get points for style. Other than that, it does also look a lot cooler when it hits, forming a mini tornado as soon as it hits anyone. In the show, Naruto used this against the second Tsuchikage's reanimation, and this was enough to put him down for a good while. Keep in mind that reanimations usually heal pretty fast from anything you can do to them, so this definitely packs quite a punch. The summoning jutsu is one of Naruto's oldest techniques and was definitely a little too good for him when he first learned the technique. Using this, the user can form a contract with a summon, then call them using the summoning technique whenever the user is in a bind. These summons are pretty much as strong as the amount of chakra a user can put into the technique. Luckily for Part 1 Naruto, chakra was about the only thing he had. He could summon the strongest Toad summon, Gamabunta. Gamabunta is no joke. He was strong enough to square off against the One-Tails pretty much on his own. This summon is pretty much the only reason the Leaf Village is still around by the end of the Chunin exams. Naruto can also summon other powerful Toads, as shown in the War Arc, when he summoned Gamakichi. This jutsu definitely deserves a spot here. This is the point where these jutsus start getting a little ridiculous and start showing off just how Naruto ended up as the strongest ninja on the planet. The Rasenshuriken is wind chakra added into the Rasengan, but that description doesn't do it justice. This is easily one of the most destructive jutsus at the point it's introduced. It's so dangerous because it's not really about how hard it hits, and it hits hard enough as it is. No, instead this jutsu cuts anything it touches at a cellular level. And this includes the person using it, if they're in the blast with it. This technique is responsible for one-shotting Kakazu, someone who apparently survived a fight against Hashirama. It's also the only technique Naruto was ever forbidden from using until he could learn how to throw it without harming himself. Tailed beast balls are pretty much one of the strongest and most epic techniques in all of Naruto. Pretty much the whole series was building up to these tailed beasts as complete powerhouses, and tailed beast bombs more than showed us why. These things are pretty much small nukes that can level villages, let alone individual ninja. Now, what if you could have a small version of them that is a lot more convenient to use? That's pretty much what a mini-tailed beast ball is, and these things definitely don't disappoint. They are of course not quite as strong as a regular Bijou Dama, but it's probably still overkill for just about anyone, with a few exceptions of course. Now we all know a Rasengan hits pretty hard as it is, and we can all agree that the giant Rasengan enhanced by natural energy hurts a lot more. So what if we had 100 shadow clones, all of whom ran at someone holding these giant Rasengans? Let's just say it wouldn't be a great time, but how bad would it be? This technique was pretty much able to subdue the Nine Tails back when Naruto was trying to master its chakra. Bear in mind the Nine Tails is by far the strongest tailed beast after the 10 Tails. Also, just remember that this Nine Tails was more than capable of breaking out of Pain's Chibaku Tensei. If that doesn't tell you how ridiculous this technique is, I don't know what will. The Rasengan is probably the single jutsu with the most variations in the entire series, and all of them are cooler than the last. This Rasengan was something Naruto only got access to after he got his half of the Sage of Six Paths powers. The really cool thing about the Jiton Rasengan is that it isn't really for doing a lot of damage, though it obviously does that too. Rather, by using the One Tail's magnet release Kekkei Genkai, this Rasengan is meant to seal whoever gets hit by it, giving Naruto an option he's never had in the series before. Unfortunately, this was kind of overshadowed in the series because Naruto used it against Six Paths Madara, who managed to get out of it. But you can be sure this would have ended just about anyone else in the entire show. Look, this Rasenshuriken is awesome. If you get hit by it directly, you're pretty much done no matter who you are. The only reason Naruto doesn't just walk around one-shotting everything in the series is because characters have ways to dodge or absorb this thing. So what if you had a gigantic version of the Rasenshuriken, something that's a lot harder to dodge? This is pretty much what you'd end up with. If Overkill was a jutsu, this might probably be it. If you watched the show and thought it was crazy, read the manga. It's gigantic. Probably a good 3 times bigger than it was in the show. It's like the animators knew this thing was absolutely ridiculous and tried to tone it down. How can you not have it on this list? This is definitely one of the easiest to explain techniques on this list. Tail Beast Bombs are basically nukes, so having more of them can't be a bad thing. That's what this is, with Naruto being able to spam Tail Beast Bombs at anyone he wants to make not exist anymore. As we've talked about on this channel before, a Tail Beast Ball is really only as strong as a Tail Beast that uses it. The Nine Tails, being as absurdly strong as it is, only means that Naruto using this technique can kill pretty much anyone who doesn't have something equally crazy to protect themselves. At number 10, we have another one of the Tail Beast techniques Naruto only learns how to use after getting the Sage powers, and it's broken. Basically, the user can boil their own chakra to increase their own physical strength. You can pretty much see the steam erupting from their bodies. The more steam you have, the stronger the user is at the moment. How strong can the user get? Well, as the name suggests, you can get ridiculously strong. By the time Naruto learned it, he was already absurdly powerful, but this just added another multiplier on top of that. Using this, Naruto smashed one of Kaguya's techniques, and at that point, we're talking about the level of literal gods, and not just ordinary ninja. The best part is that unlike something like the 8 Gates, there is absolutely no drawbacks whatsoever. Take the incredibly broken Rasenshuriken and add the 4 Tails chakra to it, and you get this monstrosity. The Rasenshuriken is already enough to take out almost anything that isn't a Six Paths character, so how strong is this version? This technique was strong enough to blast away 10 Tails Madara, someone even Naruto and Sasuke were struggling with before they got their Six Paths powers. This isn't even the most impressive thing it did though. It also just happened to casually cut the god tree in half. Like Naruto wasn't even aiming for that. This thing just happened to slice the tree on its way to Madara, and that was enough. Oh, and it looks absolutely amazing, if you needed any more reasons to love this technique. The last Naruto movie was pretty much high-tier Naruto and Hinata fanservice, and it all built up to this technique. Naruto concentrates all of his and Kurama's chakra into one hand and punches someone really, really hard. How strong does he hit? Just the shockwave from this hit made a giant crater on the moon. Not only was this enough to blow away Toneri's attack, it quite literally one-shot him. This was the same Toneri who 10 minutes ago cut the moon in half. Yes, the actual moon. We should just be happy Naruto didn't think of using this technique during the war, or it would have been a lot shorter. Maybe holding Hinata's scarf gave this technique the last bit of oomph. Who knows? I mean, you can't really talk about a version of the Tail Beast Ball without talking about the original thing. Yes, the Bijou Dama is not only one of Naruto's strongest techniques, but one of the most recognizable jutsu in the entire Naruto world. Naruto himself has used this thing many times to great effect. The Bijudama being introduced was pretty much the point where ordinary ninja didn't really have that much left to do in the show. They were just too outclassed. Probably the most recognizable Bijudama from Naruto himself came from his last clash with Sasuke at the Final Valley. This thing matched Sasuke's perfect Susanoo Chidori, both because of how strong it is and because of how important it is in Naruto. The Bijudama takes its rightful spot on this list. The truth-seeking orbs are probably one of the strongest techniques in the entire series. The only reason this isn't top 5 is because Naruto seemed like he had no idea how to use the things. These orbs are pretty much made of every chakra nature you can think of and can instantly negate any ninjutsu thrown at them. Oh, and if one just happens to touch you, you pretty much instantly get vaporized. Just by having these things, the team of Guy, Kakashi, Lee, and Minato had to play some 5D chess just to get a single hit on Madara. That's how crazy they are. Naruto mostly used these orbs to block a Susanoo arrow and get some height against Kaguya. Yes, definitely not his finest moments. You can't help but think there was some missed potential here for Naruto. Say one thing about Naruto, say he learned how to name his jutsus from his father. Yes, the name doesn't exactly leave a lot of room for mystery here. This is the biggest ball of Rasengan that anyone in the entire show can make, and something we've only seen Naruto ever use. How big is it? Well, take the giant Rasengan and multiply it by 10, and you'd be close. The thing was strong enough to defeat Fuse Momoshiki, Delta, and push Jigen to use his teleportation jutsu to escape. It's clear this is the strongest Rasengan seen until now. Naruto's techniques aren't exactly creative, but they sure do get the job done. As the name suggests, this is basically just taking out the Rasengan base from the Rasenshuriken and adding a mini-tailed beast ball to it. Naruto being Naruto, he can of course use many of these at the same time, as if he needed any more power. Using these, Naruto pretty much destroyed a barrage of meteors. These weren't exactly small either, they were pretty much the same size as the ones that Madara used in his legendary introduction against the Shinobi Alliance. Whether this is just proof that Naruto power scaling got really ridiculous at the end is up for debate. Still, this looks really cool and deserves a spot here. And now we finally come to the ultimate form of the Rasenshuriken, and well, there were a lot of forms. Basically, infusing any one of the tail beast's chakra into the Rasenshuriken makes its own new variation with its own unique appearance. Naruto, of course, had all of the tail beast's chakra at this point, and he had 9 different forms of the Rasenshuriken at his disposal. Look, any single one of these is overpowered and will literally one-shot anybody but Madara, Obito, Sasuke, and other Otsutsuki characters. Naruto, however, can use clones to throw all 9 of these at once at someone. Pretty much the definition of overkill at that point. Take the last entry and make them bigger. Yes, for some reason, if you need to take one of the strongest jutsu in the series and make it even stronger, you'll end up with this. Thankfully, even Naruto needs to be in his Kurama avatar if he wants to use these things, and he can't quite use all 9 at once, but they still destroy basically anything. In the series, we saw these things match Sasuke's ultimate technique, Indra's Arrow. Frankly, the fact that Sasuke had anything up his sleeve even close to matching this is a miracle. The ensuing clash from their jutsu created the biggest blast in the entire series, destroying not only Final Valley, but everything for miles. In terms of raw power, Naruto has never used a stronger technique than this. Now, before revealing Naruto's best jutsu, I have 2 honorable mentions since Naruto has so many techniques that you just can't fit them all onto this list. We didn't even have room to put in the normal Rasengan. Still, there are 2 jutsu that Naruto is most well known for, and they are What can I possibly say about this technique that can show off how broken it is? Naruto can combine his shadow clone jutsu with his sexy jutsu to make a harem of gorgeous women. Just seeing this offers a level of mental shock Itachi Tsukiyomi wishes it had. Using just a sexy jutsu, Naruto was able to one-shot the 3rd Hokage as a genin. Even Kaguya, the strongest person in the entire original series, wasn't immune. The reverse harem jutsu was unironically useful in their fight against Kaguya, more than most of the things on this list.
いいから来いこの野郎
The second honorable mention goes to the Talk No Jutsu. It doesn't matter if you're just a missing ninja trying to make some money or a godlike being planning to conquer the world, you aren't immune to this. Using this forbidden art, Naruto can and will bring up the past you really don't want to remember and make you go through the therapy you missed out on. Everyone from Zabuza to Nagato to Obito didn't stand a chance when Naruto booked their therapist appointment. Now with mentions out of the way, let's get to our number 1 entry. Yes, at number 1, we have the single most recognizable jutsu in the entire show, and pretty much the only one that has stuck with Naruto through the entire series. No matter how strong he got and how broken every villain got, the multi-shadow clone jutsu always had its place. For one thing, many of Naruto's strongest techniques like Asura Mode or the giant Rasengan barrage need shadow clones to actually use them. This isn't even the only reason this technique is here. The multi-shadow clone jutsu represents the single biggest missed opportunity in the entire show. Basically, when a shadow clone dies, it remembers the last few seconds before it popped, letting the user learn from their experiences. That doesn't sound that great until you remember that using thousands of shadow clones, Naruto managed to learn Wind Chakra in a couple of days. This is something that's supposed to take years, and Naruto did it over a weekend. Pretty much the entire show would have been a lot shorter if Naruto had used this technique to its full potential. The only thing really stopping this technique from breaking the series is the writer not wanting to use that. Heck, half of Boruto doesn't happen if Naruto just has 100 shadow clones to take care of the being Hokage thing. For all these reasons, the multi-shadow clone jutsu is my pick for number 1. That's it for this list. This was pretty hard to make since Naruto just learned so many new jutsu during the 4th Great Ninja War. At the end of the day, this list is just my personal opinion. What do you think of Naruto's top 20 jutsu? Be sure to leave your lists down below in the comment section. This is all for now, and I'll see you guys in my next video. AnimeScale out. Bye!